Good morning. I said good morning. I'm so glad to see all y'all. It's so good to see you. As we get started, any of you who would prefer to experience the symposium in Spanish, if you haven't already, please go to the back corner table to get the headsets. And now I want to introduce our interpreters from a community language cooperative. So if I could ask Jennifer Vallejo and Alejandro Arrieta to come up and explain, talk about language justice and how we will be doing our interpretation today. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. Oh, this crowd is we're waking up. All right, breakfast was good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us. My name is Alejandro with Community Language Cooperative. Today and for the following days, we're going to be with a team of language justice practitioners. In this space, we really want to submerge y'all into language justice, introduce it to you if you're not familiar with it, and give you a little more practice if you are. Awesome. So we're actually going to be providing interpretation equipment for everyone who's not fully bilingual in English and Spanish. There may be other languages in the space that we want to honor, and we encourage you to speak them and interpret for yourselves if possible. However, we will be here for English and Spanish specifically. On our team, we have Itzel, who is on the mic interpreting right now into English. We have Lynette, who is in the back interpreting for our online portion. We have Diana as well, and Jennifer, who is helping us with all of the admin, fun backdoor stuff. All right, and I'm going to actually invite folks who are monolingual English speakers to also get a equipment piece. Throughout the day, there may be questions and comments in Spanish, and we want to make sure that every word is valued and respected and honored, and we want to make sure that folks are able to participate in the language of their heart. So if you're not fully bilingual in English and Spanish, you do need a headset. And later on, when we break out into sessions, there will be some sessions that will be bilingual, so you'll need it for then as well. So we encourage you to prepare and to have that ready. And then I'm going to switch into Spanish and give us those instructions. Everybody has their equipment? Yeah, so the equipment is on the table in the back. This long table, if Diana and Lynette, if you can raise your hands in the back. So if you see two hands raised in the back, we have interpretation equipment available. And if you have other friends, colleagues sitting next to you, you can just send one person and bring back a couple of pieces of equipment for your table. That would also help us be a little bit quicker. Perfect. And just for time's sake, as we get in line for that interpretation equipment, I'm going to go over how to put it on. So once you have that, we can get going. So the headset is just one headphone. It does open, it's left or right. Padding goes on the inside. Plastic piece goes right behind your ear. The easiest way to use the interpretation equipment when we're in a bilingual space is to keep on your headphone and simply plug it in at the top. If you don't plug it in all the way, you won't hear it. If we're speaking in the language of your heart, then you can just simply leave it a little unplugged, listen to the original speaker, and whenever the language changes to where you do need or prefer the interpretation, then you can simply plug in your headphone all the way to the bottom, and you're quickly going to continue being part of that conversation. Does that make sense? If you need to increase the volume, arrow to the right, decrease volume, arrow to the left. In this space, it is a large space, so if you see any interpreters doing this, or you see anybody else doing this, that means there's interference. If you're listening to the interpretation and it's cutting out, there's a ticking noise, things like that, go ahead and just do this, and then we interpreters know, all right, we need to go troubleshoot or figure out whatever that issue is with the technology. Yeah? If we're speaking too fast, you might see the interpreters or someone else do this. This means just stretch it out a little bit for us. Spanish can be 15 to 25% longer than English, so it does take us a few more seconds. So if you see us doing this, just get comfortable with your pace. Yeah? If we do this, if we point at our ear, that means we cannot hear you. Sometimes we like to use a mic all the way down here, and it's really, really hard to hear. And you can imagine why it's difficult to interpret that way. So make sure you put it right up to your mouth and you speak nice and strongly, even with a mic. Yeah? Awesome. Well, we're going to be in the back. If you have any questions, please let us know. We're going to continue bugging you about language justice so that we can all make sure this is a great experience, an equitable experience where everybody can participate in the language of their heart and fully be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Alejandro. And thank everyone for participating in this because it's important. And I love the concept of the language of your heart, that everyone should be able to participate, live, enjoy life in the language of their heart. And we're very happy to be to have that as one of our commitments. Next, I want to invite Olga Gonzalez to the stage. Olga is the executive director of Cultivando and is the proud descendant of indigenous Yaqui and Otumi people who survived European land theft, Mexican slavery, and forced relocation. She was born in Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, and grew up in Los Angeles. She considers herself a child of the Mother Earth and makes her home wherever she plants her roots and her prayers. She has 3 amazing children that she's also raising to be passionate and compassionate warriors for social justice. We take this time to do land acknowledgement because whenever you're in someone else's home, you always respect it. You always acknowledge it. And wherever we go in this land we call the United States, we're in someone else's home. So we want to take that opportunity for the acknowledgement. Thank you, Olga.
Adesi Nanitoka Olga Gonzalez. Good morning. My name is Olga Gonzalez. I'm honored to have been asked to share land acknowledgement at this year's Health Symposium. The words I will share are a collective voice and not just my own. I'm no one special, but I've inherited teachings from my elders, and so it is with humility I share this honoring with you today. I'm burning some copal, which in my tradition is used to unite the circle. Wherever we are, that is the intention we're setting. In starting today, I ask permission of and give thanks to the ancestors, to Creator, to the 4 sacred directions, and to our Madre Tierra. I want to offer gratitude to the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, as well as the Ute, Apache, and all other original peoples who called Colorado their home. As an indigenous Yaqui Otomi woman with roots in what is now Mexico and Arizona, I am also a guest here and want to acknowledge and honor the ancestors of this place. I also want to acknowledge and honor the land itself for providing, for sustaining, and for being the example of how we must live in relation to one another. I honor the ceremonies and prayers that happened here in this place. I honor the traditional names and languages that were once spoken here, the teachings that took place here. I honor the indigenous people who still exist here. By acknowledging our presence, we are a testament to the strength and the resilience of our ancestors and the pride of our people. We all share a historical wound. We must acknowledge the harm that has been caused here in its many forms, whether through genocide, land theft, forced removal, boarding schools, systemic racism, and erasure. By acknowledging these things, we begin to heal. And although we cannot change history, we can create our future. By healing the land, we also heal our relationships to each other. By taking action to address the systemic issues that harm indigenous people today, we begin to demonstrate our commitment to righting the wrongs of the past and to changing the status quo. Gracias, Tlazocamati, Thank you, Creator, for another day of life and for bringing us together for this time to root ourselves collectively to do our trabajo, our work in community today. I thank each of you for being here, and may you all have a blessed day and enjoy the rest of this symposium. Ometeo.
Thank you. Give a seat. You have no idea how happy I am to see all of you. It's been a long 2.5 years, right? So, find somebody near you and high five them, hug them, shake their hand, something, just say, I'm so glad to see you. Say, we made it. We made it. Some of us a little raggedy in how we made it through, but we made it through, even though it's not all completely over yet. Hopefully we've made it through the worst part. And it would be not honest to also to recognize and talk about the folks who did not make it through with us these last couple of years. So if you lost someone to COVID, a family member, a coworker, a neighbor, a loved one during COVID, due to COVID, please stand. Wow. And if you lost someone during these last 2.5 years that, just stay standing for a minute. If that wasn't due to COVID, but because of COVID, you couldn't gather to honor them, join the folks that are already standing. Wow. So while we celebrate that we came through, let's take a moment of silence to recognize and honor and lift up our loved ones who did not. Thank you. Please be seated. The loss is almost overwhelming. These past 2 years have been more than overwhelming, and we're so glad we could come together, as many of us that can. And over half of you are new. Over half of you are new to the Colorado Health Symposium. So to you, I say, welcome home, because I think by the end of the 3 days, you'll feel like you're home. And to those of you who've been with us for multiple symposiums, welcome back. So you can renew relationships. Hopefully this space will give you an opportunity to be renewed, rejuvenated, lifted up, and fired up. So I've got a few slides I want to go through. Just want to So because so many of you knew, I wanted to just give you just a quick background of who we are as a foundation. Our vision is that every person, every family, every community across Colorado can say we have all we need to be healthy. And so what our work is around trying to bring health in reach for everyone, particularly those for whom it is the furthest from reach. And COVID made it almost seem even further from reach for so many folks. The three things that guide everything we do is that we do everything with the intent of creating health equity. We are committed to being in service to, for, and with Coloradans who have less power, less privilege, less income, and those who, and we prioritize Coloradans of color. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And then we're informed by those very communities that we want to serve and help lift up and help them bring health and reach for themselves. And as we go through these few days, you'll see evidence of all three of these things. And so those of you that don't know us that well, or those of you that do know us, we've decided this evening we're going to do a pop-up town hall. So it'll be from 7 to 8 in Gray's Peak room, which is on one of the main hallways, so that some of the things I'll share this morning I won't have time to go into detail with. You can come and ask questions about it, hear more about it, ask your own questions about the work of the Colorado Health Foundation. Happy to provide that space. We just don't have the time to do it in this form because we have so much to offer you. All right, so we haven't seen you since July of 2019. So what have we been up to in that time? We've been up to the same stuff you've been up to. We, March 10th or whatever day it was when the world shut down, we shut down. We were among the privileged who were able to do our work from home and work virtually. Some of you had that same privilege, and many of you did not. Many of you frontline workers had to continue to go and serve your clients, your patients, your guests, and we thank you for that because we know you put yourselves in harm's way not to do that. So we're working from home, and I have to tell you, it wasn't just working from home. We have an organization with a lot of parents. So it wasn't just you're trying to work from home, you're trying to have daycare at home, you're trying to be school teacher at home, school teacher, bus driver, lunch lady, everything. Those of you that have young children that were at home, I bow down to you because I don't know how you did it. And if you were a single parent, I really don't know how you did it because you were doing triple, quadruple duty. So it wasn't just as simple as for me with children who are pretty much out of the house to just work from home. Or as my therapist explained to me, I wasn't working from home, I was living at work. And that was not healthy, but I never figured that out. I was not one of those people who, people took up knitting and they painted and they learned to cook. Every habit I developed during COVID was dysfunctional. Did not serve me well, still paying for it. But I hated it. Hated it, and developed all kinds of bad habits. And that was part of my struggle during COVID. And I know for every person in here, we've got a different story of a different struggle. So then we had the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020, and then the racial reckoning that began across the country. Then also in 2020, we had a little election. Then right at 2021, we had an insurrection that we're learning more and more about now. In the meantime, housing prices just kept doing this, and inventory did this, right? As I talk to so many of you that are executive directors of nonprofits or CEOs of nonprofits, the housing crisis hit you square in the face because of your staff. You not being able to pay them enough to afford to live nearby. Them getting pushed further and further and further out, or leaving. Leaving because of burnout. Leaving because the cost of living was too high. Leaving because some other organization could pay them 40% more than you were able to. And all of those things have impacted all of us. So it's not just what happened to us individually with COVID, it's what happened in the world around us. And now we got a war. It's not our war, but everything's connected. So of course, the war with Ukraine and Russia is affecting us. Just read yesterday that Russia's now cut off all the oil supply to the UK, to the UK. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to get through the winter with less oil. So, and all of that is a ripple effect on us. So what we've been up to is trying to manage this and trying to keep our eye on our strategic direction of health equity through racial justice. But one of the things we were able to do during COVID is we've deepened and finalized our deepening of our equity agenda. So instead of having a broad equity agenda, we did move to an agenda of health equity through racial justice. Happy to talk more about that tonight at the town hall, but I want to spend a minute on this with everyone here, because the number one question we get, what do you imagine the number one question we get is what? Why are you focusing on race? When there's so many other areas of disparity. There's gender disparity, there's LGBTQ, there's rural and urban, on and on, folks living with disabilities. And all of those things are true. But the reason we have chosen to focus on racial justice is because there is the centrality of race. So if you want to work on the greatest inequities, name it, the greatest inequities in education, the biggest gaps are amongst people of color. If you want to work on the greatest equity in healthcare, the biggest gap is amongst people of color. If you want to talk about women and children, the biggest gaps are amongst women and children of color. LGBTQ, the biggest gaps, the greatest inequities are amongst LGBTQ of color. So there is the centrality of race. So that is why we focused on health equity through racial justice. Now, the next question I won't go into as deeply now, but I'm happy to talk about tonight, is we're in Colorado, and particularly rural Colorado, where the population is predominantly white. Have you forgotten about white folks who live in with low income? And the short and emphatic answer is absolutely not. And don't have time to go into that now, but hopefully if you want to talk about that tonight at the town hall, we'll be happy to do that. Then we also, one of the things, as we were kind of pressure testing, let me back up for a moment. These are the areas that we think we can have a role in disrupting systemic racism. We are not naive enough to think that philanthropy in general or the Colorado Health Foundation in particular can eliminate systemic racism. But we know we have a role to play. So these are the areas in which we think we are uniquely able to have a niche in helping all of you advance the work you're doing in racial justice. And you'll see evidence of that, or of these levers in the content that we're going to have the next few days. But as we were pressure testing these concepts with many of you, part of the feedback we got was, well, how are you going to hold yourself accountable to this? How are we going to know, and how are you going to know if you're living up to what you're promising? So we decided, okay, we're going to make some public accountabilities. And these are the 7 public accountabilities we've made around the makeup of our staff, the makeup of our board, where we invest the 95% of the money that we don't distribute every year, having a great portion of that money managed by women and people of color investment firms or in key decision-making roles, that half of our funding would be to programs serving at least 50% people of color. And back to the question about have you forgotten about white folks? Well, if 50% are going to organizations that serve 50% people of color, where's the other 50% going? Right, to organizations that aren't serving 50% people of color. So that's part of the accountability. So you can see these accountabilities that we're holding ourselves accountable to. And we started in December this year. We post, on our website, it's under the About Us section. I think it's called Holding Ourselves Accountable. So we are publishing these data against these 7 accountabilities annually. So these are just some examples of what you'll see. But we will update that at the end of every year. It's available for anyone to take a look at. So we want you to know the things that we're going to be holding ourselves accountable to. So that's kind of what we've been up to. So now that brings us to today. So why are we talking about the status quo has got to go and changing the game? It's exhausting. It's frustrating. It's futile to play a game that's designed for somebody else to win. Right? So we want to change the game. We want to change the game to make it so that everyone has a chance to win the game. And that's the game of good health. That's the game of good access to education, access to all the things that we need to create a healthy community and a healthy life. So that's what we're going to focus on. What are some of the ways we can disrupt the current systems, dismantle them, and then begin to rebuild them? That's what this is about. That's what we want to focus on. So what to expect? Now, one of the things that, particularly over the last 2 years, we have heard time and time again from lots of people is we can't wait to get back to normal. Well, the Colorado Health Foundation is not trying to get things back to normal, and I don't believe you are either, because normal wasn't so great for the people we exist to be in service to start with. So why would we want to help anyone get back to a state that wasn't positive? So we want to help create the new normal with you and your communities to create a normal that's worth missing, that's worth wanting to get back to. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about how do we get back to normal. We're going to be talking about how do we get to the new normal? How do we get to the normal of the changed game? So we haven't been together in 2.5 years. A lot has happened in the world in 2.5 years. And so we have to adapt to that in some ways. So we want this to be an inclusive space, inclusive of lots of viewpoints. I'm sure you will hear some things between now and Friday to which you will be nodding your head vigorously or snapping. You may hear some things that you go, I hadn't thought about that before, I need to think about that. You may hear some things that make you go, ouch. It's like, were they talking, did they know I was going to be here? That they were talking directly to me? And there may be some things you go, I don't agree with that. That's okay. That's what happens in an inclusive environment. You welcome all of those opinions, and you listen deeply to those opinions, particularly those that may be different from yours, because there's probably something in there for you to learn, or at least take away. So we want this to be safe. This is the first time many of you have been in a group this large since March of 2020. And so take care of yourself, whatever that looks like. If you need to stand up, stand up. If you need to get outside and take a walk, take a walk. For me, I usually take a nap right before we come back for the evening session. That's my version of self-care. So whatever you need to do to make yourself comfortable and enjoy this space together. Patience and grace. We have not done this for 2.5 years. We're not rusty, but we haven't done it in 2.5 years. But I will, as an example, I'll say when we did our first board meeting back in person after 2 years, it was like the muscle memory for holding a board meeting had gone. We had to think about everything that we used to didn't have to think about. And we were all, every time it was like, we forgot to charge the mics during lunch because they'll run out in the afternoon. So we have a fabulous team, but we're getting our muscle memory back. So be patient with us, be patient with each other, give us all some grace. That's all any of us can ask for, some grace. And then we're focused on health and well-being. A few things this year. So out this door at the end of this hall, there's a chill lounge. It's just a place you can go and hang out. If you want to color, you can color. If you want to sit there we got some poppets that you buy your kids and your grandkids. You can sit there and play with the poppets. There are lots of things to just go and just kind of, bring your blood pressure down. There's a Connection Cafe, which is on this end of the hall, and this is a place that's an interactive space. So there may be questions. It's for you to go and kind of give your comments, your ideas on some questions that are there. And then there's the empathy booth. It's a space for just 2 people. And it's for 2 people to go and sit and engage with each other deeply. There are some conversation starters there. You can pick somebody you don't know and go together, or you can just go sit there and wait for somebody to join you. And then get to know someone new at a level that's beyond, ooh, it's hot, isn't it? Or I'm so glad it's not raining, something beyond that. So we have those spaces available for you. And because of the world we live in, we, as an abundance of caution, you had to provide your vaccine status or negative COVID test when you checked in. We want everyone to wear your mask when you're in this building, unless you're actively eating or drinking. And we're not going to police you. We're going to ask you to police yourselves. Police your neighbor. Just say, oh, you forgot to wear it. You don't have your mask on. So be gentle. But we want everyone to do that. You will notice that there are some of the hotel staff who are not wearing masks. I think all the food service people are. But their policy is to follow local policy, which is mask optional. So you'll see some Keystone Resort staff that won't be wearing a mask. You got a box of 2 COVID tests when you arrived. We ask everyone on the honor system tomorrow morning before you come in, take a COVID test. If you test negative, come on over. If you test positive, there's a email on our website. It's CO Health Symposium at coloradohealth.org. Email them, let them know, and then they'll follow up with you to move on to the next steps. But don't come over if you test positive. Stay put till somebody contacts you. And name badge, which I am not wearing at this moment because it clinks around and messes with the microphone. But part of is everyone wear your name badge, then we know you belong here. Because this is a very accessible building. We only want the people in this building who have registered and who have been invited to attend. Those of you who've been here before, it's just that whole corridor is just a whole wall of windows and doors. In the past, all of those doors would be open, would be unlocked. This year, because of the world we live in, unfortunately, we had to think about this. There are only a few doors that are open from the outside. I think they're the doors that are directly in front of the registration area. You need to come in through those doors. Now, you can get out through any door, but we're limiting the access to a few doors that's always being watched. And again, unfortunately, hate that we have to think about those kinds of things, but in this world we do. And then no weapons. It's one of those things that kind of goes without saying, but again, in this day and age, you may have to say it. So today we've got some plenaries this morning. And because it's about game changers, we wanted to do more there. So there'll be several panels in the morning instead of just one plenary person. We'll have some plenary speakers, but there'll also be some panels that are a mixture of both local Colorado folks and some national folks, because we want to give you the perspective of what's happening in our state in the game-changing space and what's happening nationally that we can draw from and learn from. After that, we have lunch, then our afternoon exchange sessions this afternoon, and then we have Zumba that Kathy Phelps is going to be running for us, and Olga is going to be doing a healing circle for us. The opening reception is at 6 tonight, 6 to 7:30, and we'll have the town hall from 7 to 8. So I think I'm going to look to my team to say, did I miss any of the kind of detail I needed to share with folks? Okay, I got a thumbs up, okay. So again, enjoy being back together. Be safe with each other, be safe with one another. I think we will, as I said, we will provoke you in some ways. Sometimes we'll affirm or reaffirm what you're already doing and thinking. We may challenge what you're doing and thinking, but it's all in the service of learning and changing the game so that everyone has a chance to win.